Hope you've got your questions ready. Let's make this really interactive because I have the wonderful and talented Jo Starling on tonight's show. We're going to cover a lot of topics, but I'm hoping to find out why she chose to do a fly gap year and not cast lures when fish are already hard enough to catch. Let's speak to Jo and see what's happening.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go live. Here we go, I've done it again. I don't know what's happening, but these intros are getting harder to make, I can tell you. Listen, I'd got to cover some things before we get Jo up on tonight. So let's go here. G'day, Jo.
Hey, how are you? You feeling okay?
I'm feeling all right now. I've got a bit of a sore back of the head. No, all fun and games, and we hope to continue on with some fun. So we've already got some comments, and they're all family members. Harrison, Granny, Glenn, g'day, Sean again. You're on again. So listen, I've got to do a little bit of a shout out here, Jo. I want to get to you in a second, but this guy here has just come over again and dropped off some more prizes to give away tonight. So everyone's in for some more prizes tonight. And I don't know if you'll see that there, but Dizzy Scent. So we'll hold it the right way up. Dizzy Scent has got a heap of prizes then. We've got a shirt, some stickers. We've got a heap of Dizzy Scent packets as well. Of course, we've still got the McGrath lures like last week in the packs. And we have the voucher for $50 for a local. So don't forget to put your name and where you're from in the comments, please. So let's just hide. So thanks again to, what have we got? We've got something happening in the background. Get rid of that. So that won't happen again. All right. So Rick, thank you very much for all your support. Jo, welcome on board to Chewin the Fat with the cat.
How are you, mate?
Good, good. What are you having a drink of tonight?
I am trying the new Little Creatures XPA. Whoop, where is the camera? Whoop. They're fast, aren't they? Those little cherubs. There you go. So cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. That's all good. I'm in my best dad coffee tonight. I've decided to have a night off the grog, so hopefully I can still be entertaining, but we can cover a lot of stuff tonight. So let's just make sure that I'm running this properly because I've had a bit of a computer issue this afternoon. And don't forget to put your comments in. We have prizes are all given away for comments only. And if you can, yeah, like, tag, share everything we do to get the following. So, Jo,
Yes.
Let's talk about this fly gap year. Where did this crazy idea come from?
Desperation.
So for people that don't know or haven't followed you on your social media channels, tell us about what a fly gap year is.
Okay, so I started my fly gear gap year, or I used to call it my floggy for short, because I'm hoping that people know who I am, and that I've had a fairly fast and steep learning curve in fishing, and because of my association with Steve, I have had to learn many different forms of fishing. When I got introduced to fly fishing, I fell in love, and but I didn't get the opportunity really to spend any time on any one discipline. if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so we fly off it depending on what the bookings were. We were doing a lot of the fishing DVD and things like that. And I just get told, okay, this is what we're doing today. And most of the time I had to make it up as I went along. But fly fishing, you can't really pick it up like that. You've really got to apply yourself to it. It's an entirely different discipline. So after about 7 years, I suppose, of having since first picking up a fly rod, I reckon I'd cast one about 30 times in those 7 years. So I was still a really rank beginner, and it was really troubling me. And I knew the only way that I was ever going to feel like I was getting somewhere is if I swore off all the much easier forms of fishing and just said, I have to, if I'm going to catch fish today, if I'm out on the water, I have to use the fly rod. And so I made this promise, and Manic Tackle from New Zealand jumped on board and supported me a lot, and set me up with a whole heap of great flies and a new fly rod and things like that. So then I was committed. I had to do it.
But for me, with fly fishing, I suppose I've always associated fly fishing to just trout. Because freshwater background, I know that people catch fish on fly other ways, but just associated with trout in streams and stuff like that. But you decided that for the whole year, you're going to catch as many species as you can on fly.
Yes, that's right. So the year itself was a huge disappointment. I'll be honest with you, mainly because I went to Tassie at the beginning of the year. So we had New Year's in Tasmania, and we were coming home on the 17th. So lots and lots of trout fishing. And then the 2 days before we were due to jump back on the boat anyway, I just got a little bit unbalanced when I was going back to pick a fly out of a pesky thistle behind me on top of a dam wall. And I probably would have rolled my ankle if I wasn't wearing wading boots, but the ankle was held firm. And so I busted my ACL, my, what do you call that? The anterior cruciate ligament in my knee.
Yeah.
And so not even halfway through the first month of my fly gear gap year, I was put out with an injury. So it was 6 months before that was reconstructed, and I was only able to do very limited fly fishing until then, obviously. And then I wasn't actually allowed to fly fish for 12 months or any fishing. I was put on the bench. So in the time that the things that I was actually able to do, I did a lot of learning, a lot of interviewing, a lot of study. I went to the fly muster in Foster and did some lessons and caught flathead and whiting and things like that. Had an amazing time. But I will say, Corey, even with the debilitation and with the handicap that I had, I learned more in that year by not picking up the other stuff. Caveat though, in the tournaments I had to. But I learned so much, and I think I actually achieved more than I thought I'd achieve, even though I wasn't able to do it as much as I had planned to. So it's definitely worthwhile making the commitment. But you're right, it's more than trout. I think I'm up to 28 or 29 different species on fly, and the majority of those are salt.
That's remarkable. And I see when we talked before the show, one of your bucket list fish is on fly.
Yep, two. Bonefish and permit. I want to get. Steve's and my honeymoon was in Aitutaki, and we went chasing bonefish on fly. And I caught a range of other species, but I didn't get a bonefish. So that's unfinished business, that one. And everyone who chases saltwater fish on fly, the permit is the holy grail. So I want to find out what that's all about. But anything on fly is great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a whip cracker. I don't cast fly very successful at all. And I know there's a few guys up in Queensland in the bass circuit, especially fishing the ABTs and formerly the Bass Nations, that would quite handily pull out the fly and fish deep water fly for those bass when they were really shut down to need that really smaller presentation. But how do you go about with fly to catch, say, a Murray cod? Let's talk a Murray cod to start with.
I haven't caught one on fly. It's another bucket list one. And I do know a number of people who have caught them on fly, and I've cast for them on fly.
Yeah.
But, you know, Murray cod are the fish of 1,000 casts at the best of times. And what I found about casting for Murray cod on fly, I've only done it at Copeton Dam. I tell a lie. I also did it at Wyangler. The flies are very, very pretty, but they're big. And so it's quite exhausting, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anyone who does catch a Murray cod on fly is congratulated till the cows come home, because it's just such an amazing feat. Yeah, so probably where I'd like to do it is walking some of those natural boulder streams, you know, that we get up in the west a little bit further and from where I am here, and catching them in their native waters, because the scenery is spectacular. And that's one of the things about trout fishing. You know, it's the scenery that you're out in amongst, and the solitude and serenity and the nature and all of that sort of thing. And the cod are living in those boulderous sort of streams as well. And there's some really big cod in tiny little pockets of water. It's mind-blowing.
I'm so enthralled, because it is something that I haven't mastered. It's one of those things that I really want to get my head around. I've actually been in contact, and Mark's actually put a comment up there. He's one of the local boys here, and Mark's promised to teach me when this all finishes. He's going to take me to a couple of local streams and try and get me something on fly, because it's been very, very hard for me to teach myself. You're always fishing tournaments and whatnot, but the deal with Mark is that I've got to teach him tournament fishing, so we'll do a bit of both. So that's good. We have got some questions coming through. I'll just give some shout outs while I'm seeing it. Andrew from Albury, excellent, Andrew. Shane Melrose. Now, Shane's going to be a guest on the show very soon. So, g'day, Shane. Sean's on again. Galissa's on again from last week. Here's Ricky. So, yes, we've got some cracking prizes from you, Rick. So, we'll go into Sean's asked a question, so we'll bring it up on the screen first. So, Sean said, what species and fly rod would you recommend for beginners to start out with?
That's a really good question. So I would say that a 6, depending on where you're going to fish. If you're going saltwater and things like that, then as well, or estuary, probably a 6 to 7 weight fly rod. I think a floating line, because the thing is that with fly rods, you have all different lines depending on what it is that you want to fish for and where they are in the water column. But one of my favourite lines is a floating line, and then I cheat a little bit. I put an extra long leader on if I want to get it down in the estuaries, and put a weighted fly on the end so that I don't need to put a sinking line down. And then you can hop your fly like you would a squidgy or something along those lines. So I'd be going for a 6 to 7 weight as a general outfit. And then I'd go for a floating line to start with, because it makes it easier. You're seeing your line the entire time. It stays on top. And really, if they're all tricky, all fish are tricky on fly. So it's just going to come down to the species that you know best, and you'll understand that fish's behaviours and all of that sort of thing. So it's just going to come down to putting the right presentation in front. Clearly, just like with any other fishing, surface bites are always going to be your most exciting, and probably the easiest way to go about it is if you've got a little bit of flow and you've got an insect hatch around. So this is where trout's really great, because they're going to sip insects and things off the top of the water or in that top meniscus layer, and you get your little fly out there that matches what we call match the hatch. So it looks like it's representing that particular insect. And pop it on the top, and just make sure that it doesn't drag at all. And you can, if you've seen the trout, you know, sipping along the surface, you just put your fly in front and let the trout come. And when it sits somewhere near where you know your fly is, you strike. And I think that that's probably the most rewarding way to learn, because you can actually see that your fly has landed out there in the water, because you've got a lot of action in the cast. And then when you lay it down, you want your leader out nice and straight, and it gives you that confirmation, I guess, that you've done it all right. And then you also have the opportunity to catch it. And I'll tell you, those tiny little trout like this, they give a fly rod a good bend, and they fight. It's always surprising when they come up, because it feels like a much bigger fish than what they actually are. So that's what I'd start with. If you can get to a trout stream, I'd do that, or find a species that likes to feed along the top.
Yeah, look, my suggestion, I suppose, would also be, not that I'm a fly expert like yourself, but as we said on last week's show, buy the best you can afford to buy, but you don't have to go out there and outlay a fortune for any of your gear to start with. Fall in love with it, and try and fish your local watering holes, and especially down here in sort of Victoria, where we're through the high country where I live in Wodonga. You've got those smaller streams that I wouldn't normally fish if I was living in Queensland. But yeah, get out there somewhere close to home where you can just go out after work and have a bit of a practice at it. If you don't catch anything, you just keep going back and really working on how the techniques and everything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. So that was an awesome question. Let's go on to what's Mark got to say here. Mark says, what has been your favourite species to catch on fly so far?
Well, they're all great. I guess it's got to come down to what it is that you're looking for, Mark. So I love trout fishing because it's the whole experience. You know, the walking trout fishing in New Zealand, for example, walking those braid streams in those vistas is just stunning. But it's such a hard question. I've loved catching trevally on fly because they go so hard, and they give you a heart palpitations. But probably the one I'm most proud of the fish that I'm most proud of, I've caught both barramundi and Saratoga on fly, and I found that extremely challenging in the circumstances that I was fishing in, and so they'd probably be up there at this point in time as my favourites on fly to date. But I anticipate that I'll be able to change that answer when I'm next allowed to go out fishing.
So with fly fishing, and I'm going to ask the basic questions because I'm basic at it, is it all, like, I see the bass guys fishing deep, so they're using the sounder to find the fish, and they're counting it down. With streams, or say you're fishing for barra or Saratoga, are you really sight fishing those fish, or you're doing the same as what you would with a lure? You're just searching with that fly.
Yeah, fly is really great when the water is really clear and you can see. The most important thing to remember in any kind of fishing is if you can see the fish can see you, and that's something that I really love with fly, is that, you know, that whole aspect of working as a team and having one person spotting the fish and you moving in behind them and that sort of thing. It's great fun. But more often than not with the salt species, we're dealing with dirty water, so it's the same as anything else. It's just surprising how long a fly will take to get down. And that's part of its appeal as well, because it hangs a lot longer in the water column, so it's in their face a lot longer if they're part way through the bottom. And as you work your line, you know, it stays up in that strike zone a lot quicker. And there's so many different ways, because you're not actually using your rod or your reel to work the fly to impart any action. You're actually using your hand on the line to impart action. You can get much more nuanced movement in the fly, and those natural fibres work much more naturally and everything else to a lure. So there are a lot of times that it's going to outfish, but then there's other times where it's just not even going to come close, and that's something I learned in my fly gear gap year as well.
Yeah, and too, you can also throw smaller fly than what you can, throwing a spin reel.
Absolutely.
So that does help, doesn't it?
It does, because you can match the hatch more accurately. So with fly, you cast the line, not the lure. The lure can weigh absolutely nothing, and so when fish are feeding on insects dropping out of trees and things like that, which they often do, you'll see estuary perch and bass and bream sipping stuff off the top as well. If there's a little hatch that's dropping out of the trees, you can put in a lure as you like. Same with barra and salmon, threadfin salmon and all that, if they're up in the shallows on jelly prawns. Anyone who's ever tried to catch any fish, even if it's trevally, and they're on jelly prawns, it's extremely frustrating, because those things are tiny and virtually clear, and anything we throw in that's not a fly is going to just be the wrong thing and be so obviously out of place that a fish won't take them. So fly does give you the opportunity to put something minute out there that can resemble those jelly prawns or the insect that's falling off the tree. Willow grubs are the size of your little fingernail, and because you cast your line and not the fly, you can get those things airborne and into the spot. So
yeah, it's something I suppose I've put off for a long time, because everyone keeps telling me how addictive it is, and when you're even getting into fly tying, and I watch all the YouTube videos and get on and do all the research, and I think I haven't got enough hours in the day to do tournament fishing and learning fly fishing. I think I'm going to have to, maybe pull the pin on the old tournament scene and do what you've done and go for a fly year and just really concentrate on it. Because it's a whole, from tying the flies, imitating the hatch. You can imitate the hatch better, as you said, the jelly prawns or, the dry nymphs and stuff like that. You can just imitate the hatch so much better than the lure itself. Isn't that right?
It is.
I'm
absolutely
right.
Yep, you get points. That's exactly right, and that's where the benefit comes in. But I would say to you, having done a fly gear gap year, Steve always told me that I was mad. He was quite right, because he used to say to me that fly doesn't suit every situation, and I used to say to him, fly fishing's so much fun, why don't more people do it more often? And he'd say, because there are just circumstances where it's not applicable. And I just thought he was being lazy. And so I just went, no, if I take the opportunity away from myself to use something else, then I will find a way. And thus my fly gear gap year was born. But probably one of the first things I found, other than having wading boots on can break your knee, the other thing that I learned was that he was absolutely right, and that there are circumstances where fly is just the wrong application for the conditions. Wind, things where you do want to get down. If you're really deep, for example, then a fly line can just take forever to get down. And if you imagine it's got a pendulum down, when it lands, and then it's going to come, as it sinks, it's going to come away from the fish. So as we know with all things, you can't just flick off extra line like you do when you've got a weighted plastic or something like that to get straight down. So there are circumstances where if you have a fly gear gap year, you just limit yourself to not going fishing for a while if the circumstances are wrong. So I have to concede that one. Steve was absolutely correct. So if you're going to do it, what I'd say to you is that you always have a versatile sort of fly rod and everything with you. Have it rigged and as your first option, but make sure that you've got your spin gear or something as well, so that you don't rule yourself out of a fishing day like I did.
Yeah, no, excellent point. Excellent point. We've got some really cracking good questions coming in. Let me find one here. We've got Andrew from Albury.
Hi, everyone.
Mark. Matthew Wales, love my fly fishing. I think he's going to pick up the one again. Excellent, Matthew. All right, Peter Wright's giving us a question here. Peter said, have you fished in New Zealand?
Yes. Yes, I have. I've fished in both the North and the South Island in a number of different spots. And, look, I have to say, I think brown trout are extremely charismatic. I love their look. Rainbow trout tend to fight harder, and so more people tend to go for them more often. I've caught more brown trout than rainbow trout, so I'm going to hazard a guess, excuse me, to suggest that rainbow trout might be a little bit more picky and a bit more difficult to catch than browns. But yeah, there's just something really special about the spots and everything on a brown trout. I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to go with brown.
Brown, excellent. Thanks for the question, Peter. Now, I want to cover as many questions as I can here before we go on to women in fishing, because there's some questions on that as well. Shane Melrose has popped up just a donation here. Thank you very much, Shane. He's going to give us some prizes to give away however we feel. We will do that on next week's show. So look forward to some Central Victorian Lure-casters prizes for next week. Thank you very much, Shane. Love your work. What's your favourite? All right. So Shane's asked, what's your favourite dam to fish?
Oh, really, really good question. Depending on what I'm fishing for, of course, I would have to say my sentimental favourite is Windermere, which is in New South Wales. I'm not sure where you're from, Shane. Reason being, my first ever fishing date with Steve was on Lake Windermere, and that was a pretty funny story. And it's been a really happy hunting ground for me. Very happy hunting ground. So yellow belly on Lake Windermere.
Excellent. Now we'll get Shane's question off there. We're running this at the same time. Well, we're still on fly. There's another good one from Peter as well. Peter's asked, do you have any tips on Saratoga in dams?
Right. So the Saratoga that I've caught on fly have been the Jardinii, which is the northern Saratoga. I haven't caught any of the eastern Saratoga on fly. They're quite different species in their behaviour. So with the eastern Saratoga, they happily hunt along the top of the water, and you can often sight cast to those. So they're obviously feeding just under the surface and things like that. So you'd probably want to cast surface or just under, sort of suspending gurglers and things like that for those. For the Jardinii up in the top end and a part of Northern Territory and I assume into the eastern part of WA, dark colours, large, weedless, and drop them in close to the structure and down the face, and then just work them slowly towards the bottom.
So I found with Saratoga, even just lure fishing, that you really want that bait lure presented down the shaft of the tree.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it doesn't. If you're out too far, they seem to. We had a really good session a couple of years ago at Boom Doomba by using football jigs for Saratoga.
Yep.
And we were actually pitching them into the base of the tree and letting it drop down the tree itself. And we're catching Saratoga with a football jig of all things.
Yep.
But they seem to, I don't know, I've never seen them underwater, but they seem to have their nose pointing towards the trunk of the tree. They're not looking away. They seem to wait for, it must be the yabbies or the stuff to climb up the tree to pick them off the tree.
They possibly do. I think certainly with the Jardinii, the northern Saratoga, all of them, you get clues from their shape, right? So they're flat, completely flat. They don't have a proper dorsal fin. They've got a fin towards the back of the tail. Their nose is flat. Their eyes are at the top, and their mouth is facing up. So they're basically hunting upwards. They're looking up all the time. So any of those fish, they'll be cruising along the bottom. I find that they orientate towards whatever structure they're looking at to feed from. So with, for example, the Saratoga in Corroboree Billabong or any of the billabongs in the top end, the trick is to land as close to the structure as possible and drop down the face. Now, if that structure happens to be shade of the edge of a lily pad, for example, you still just drop down the face of whatever that structure is, like you say, whether it's a tree trunk or the roots of pandanus or a shade line, any of those things, just stay as close to that edge, if you like, as possible, and the Saratoga should pick it up.
Excellent. Now, next question. This is a good one from Ricky. Fishing for brown trout. If the fish follows your fly but doesn't take it, will you change your fly or cast again?
Depends on how many times that's happened. If it's followed the fly, it's a really good question. Depends on how clear the water is, I suppose. Usually you can see if they've actually rejected the fly. If you can see your trout and it rejects the fly, then I would change it. If it's followed it, if you're fishing subsurface and you've seen it follow, it may have seen you, so you might need to move. But generally, if a trout rejects your fly in one form or another, the job's done. So either move on or change it and try again.
Excellent. Thanks for that question. Matthew Wales has sent through, is there a particular length of leader you prefer?
Minimum of 12 foot. So,
really?
Yeah, they're long. Up 12 to 16, you can get too long, and then all you do is cause yourself problems if it's, you get wind knots and stuff like that. So 12 foot for me. 9 foot if it's usually they'll come in as a 9 foot, and then you add a little bit on, and they vary in length. But to me, the best leader is the one that is the right length to catch a fish and not so long that it tangles on the cast. But generally, I'd start around the 12 foot and see how you go. And of course, the leader, the bite tippet at the end, the bits that you tie on, I guess. I'm trying not to get into jargon terms, but yeah, the last bit needs to be the ideal leader strength for the fish that you're targeting. So up near where it joins the fly line, it's going to be quite heavy. And as you cut flies off, because it tapers down, as you cut flies off, you're cutting off the finer bit of your leader, and it can get too thick. So you need to reattach your skinny leader to make sure, because quite often the fish that you're fishing for, if they go for small insects and things like that, then they've got very, very good eyesight. So you go down really, really fine.
Great tip. All right. Calissa asked lots of questions over the last couple of weeks. Do you make your own flies, Jo?
I'm hopeless at it, Calissa. I have made a few. I think I'm a little bit impatient, and I don't have great eyesight. If you see me doing this, it's because I'm trying to see something clearly. It is on my bucket list of things to do, and I really admire good fly ties. I think flies are an absolute work of art, but I personally, at this point in time, am a little bit hopeless at it. I have to admit.
No.
So, a goal.
Well done. Good question. All right. A couple of shout outs. Greggy Mitchell. G'day, mate. How you going? Shane, that asked a question before, is from Kyogle. So that's all good. Peter said thanks. Tracy Brown's asked a question here. Let's get this one up. What's more important, colour or profile with fly fishing?
Profile. The most important thing, colour is important too. The most important thing is that you match the hatch as closely as you can. So, Tracy, with match the hatch, that's just whatever the fish are feeding on at that particular time, which can be seasonal, it can be weather related, and all of that. You'll often see a fly fisher walk along a stream and pick up rocks and have a look underneath them. They're looking for insect life and any kind of clue as to what the fish might be feeding on at that particular season, and the colours of them. So there are different species of insect in various different places. So you look around at what is actually happening there at that time. That determines your colour, the size, and the type of fly that you're putting on, because some will float on the surface, some will sit just under, and some will sink, and they're all imitating different forms of insect life or aquatic critter. So it's just a matter of matching what is actually native to that waterway and that the fish are actually feeding on at that time.
Excellent. Thank you, Tracy, for that question. Let's go. Shane Bloke. What's Shane written here? Blokes won't admit it. So what do you target fish? Do you fish for?
Blokes won't admit to this, but Jo, what target fish do you fish for? I fish for anything that's likely to give me some fun. So down here, I'm in Chewin Head on the far south coast of New South Wales, and down here it's usually flathead or brim. Black brim are a good target. They're nice, a good size. But we've got estuary perch. We have thumping whiting, which are great fun to catch on the surface in November. Out the front, there's snapper, there's mowies, there's kingfish, there's all manner of things. So I'll fish for whatever is going at the time, I'll be honest with you. As long as there's a chance of a fish biting, then that's what I'll target. Even if I've gone out and deliberately targeted diamond scale mullet in the Northern Territory of the rocks, and they're a great fighting fish, great sport fish, and a really good eating fish as well. Not many people know that, so I'm not a snob. I'll go for anything.
Oh, look, and I know you both very well, to the extent where you're so mad keen on fishing in general. It doesn't matter. You've got these guys that'll only throw lures or only throw flies. You'll bait fish. You'll do whatever you do to catch that fish, won't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. The most important thing, I think, for Australian fishers is to make sure that we're looking after our fish stocks, being responsible, looking after the waterways, making sure they're healthy and that they're attracting more fish. Because at the end of the day, if the fish aren't there and if there's no promise of catching a fish, we won't go fishing. You know, we've all had days where we don't catch anything, and that's not what it's all about. You know, that old saying of it's not called catching, it's called fishing. The intrigue and the challenge is the fact that we know there's a fish there that can be caught, and that's what makes it so addictive for us. If you take those fish away, if you make it so unhealthy, or we deplete the stock so much that there isn't a chance of catching a fish, we lose everything. So that'd be the most important thing I think that we each need to remember is if we didn't feel that there was a chance to catch a fish, we wouldn't be wanting to go fishing anymore. It's not that we can't catch a fish, it's that there's no hope of catching a fish that puts us off. So as long as there's fish there, I'm fishing for them. Excellent.
And I think that pretty much tops Greg's question off there. He said, what is your choice for fly, whiting or flatties? With a little bit of a spelling, but it's for catties. But
choice for fly for whiting and flatties. Okay, so the whiting that I've caught on fly have been on little shrimp fly, and in fact, I had this one little shrimp fly. I should have grabbed some. It was only about this big, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was white and pink, and it just looked like a little shrimp. And on this particular day, I waded out on the flats. The tide was coming in behind me, and I was fishing for flathead out into the deeper water, into the channel, and I caught a couple of those. I also caught a brim on the same fly, and then I heard bait getting smashed up behind me as the tide was pushing across the flats and breaking through, making little channels into the deeper water. What was happening, I worked out, was that the crustaceans and crabs and little fry were spilling off the flats with the incoming tide, and the whiting was sitting, waiting like true predators, and taking them as they came through the little crevices or the little channels that were being carved by the tide. And so what I did was I cast my fly up onto the flat and then followed it down through the channels, and I picked up 2 whiting on fly doing that. So that's the beautiful thing about fly fishing, is it's so much about observation, not just of the hatch and what's going on, but of the circumstances and reading the water and just mimicking that. So standing in one place, casting in different, the same fly in different positions and working it slightly differently. I got 3 different species. It was great fun.
Excellent. And we seem to have got a lot of people on here with some really good fly questions. I'll make this the last one for now. We can come back to them later on because we do have other subjects to cover. Before I bring up Ricky's question, I wanted to talk to you. Obviously, fly fishing would lead into something we were talking about earlier, and sight fishing for fly. How important is polarized sunglasses?
Firstly, always wear sunglasses or glasses of some kind when you're fly fishing, because especially if you're fly fishing with someone else as well. But you've got a lot of line out there flying around with a hook on the end of it. It's not like traditional gear, where the hook stays away from you. We all know how easy it is to get that in. But when you've got 30 foot of line out there flying past you with a hook on the end of it, make sure you've got glasses on at all times, okay? But for spotting fish, you cannot get past polarized sunnies. You won't see fish if you haven't got your polarized sunnies on, because especially with trout and anything like that where you're walking the stream, you don't have the benefit of being up on the boat and having that higher trajectory into the water. You're actually much more level, and so it's much more mirror-like and much more reflective. So you've got to have polarized sunnies. You can't get away without it.
So that leads me in. Obviously, Steve and yourself both use Mako sunglasses.
Absolutely.
As I say all the time, buy the best you can possibly afford. Before the show, you were showing your Mako. Show us again now they're prescription Makos, the ones you've got in your hand there.
Yeah.
They're about $800 to $1,000 to get your prescription put into them.
In these ones.
Yep, and everything into those. Now, how scratch resistant are they? Show us again, because I want everyone to understand that this is a $1,000 pair of sunglasses you're going to do this to. Yeah.
So these are glass polarized mirrors, right? I've got to work this camera out, right? So mirror glasses, polarized. These ones are absolutely stunning. They're a rose-colored glass with a blue-green mirror, okay? When you look through these, it's disappointing to take them off, because that old saying of looking at life through rose-colored glasses, I've discovered is absolutely true, because everything looks amazing in these. It's super hyper real. Now, the reason these are so expensive to have polarized lenses in is they had, not polarized, but prescriptions put in, is they had to get handcrafted each time to your specific prescription over in Italy, because they're glass. And it's not just because they're glass, it's the way Mako do this. So if you own mirrored sunglasses that are actually glass, not most of them are polymer or plastic, right? Perspex. If you've gone out and bought glass ones because the lenses are better, don't do this to them, okay? But you can do this with Mako because it demonstrates a difference, and these are amazing. But here I have, you can see that's a it's just the closest lure to me sitting beside me right here. Ow, it's in my finger. Wait a minute. Ow. Okay. So here we go. I've got a skirted jig and my glasses, $1,000 worth. Just going to run that hook. Can you see running that hook over? Oh, where's the thing? Woohoo! Over that. Now, a normal pair of glasses would have scratched the mirror off the front of those, because other brands will have, yes, you can have glass lenses, but they stick the mirror onto the surface. With Mako, it's 2 layers of glass and the mirror is on the inside, and that's why it costs me so much to have prescriptions put into them, because they had to make both those pieces of glass fold together as a sandwich and still enable me to see. So don't try that at home, people, but it's worthwhile spending money on Mako polarized mirrored sunglasses, not sun plastics, if you're going to do it, because we all know how scratched up they get and you can't see through them. I've had these for years now, and I can put them down, etc., as long as I don't smash them, which I don't, obviously. But, you know, you can drop them on the deck and all of that and they don't scratch up. It's brilliant.
Yep, excellent point. So Mako sunglasses is Jo's suggestion, and make sure that they're a glass lens. I don't know how many I've scratched the coating off the outside of. We'll go on to the last fly question for now. As I said, we can come back to them later on. John has said, what's your PB fish on fly?
Right.
Biggest.
Okay, so the biggest fish, the longest fish I would have caught would have been a long-tail tuna, and it was probably, they would have been 80, 90 centimetres, I suppose. And that was one hell of a lot of fun. The story with that was off the Coburg Peninsula in, beg your pardon, off Maningrida, up in the Arnhem Land area of Northern Territory. And Steve and I were up there with our own boat. And what was happening is we saw the bust-ups. But up there, the bull sharks are a real problem, right? And so the tuna were busting up. And what we had to do is one person had to drive the boat and the other one was on point with the fly, get the cast in. And then to stop the sharks from chasing your tuna down, what we had to do was allow the tuna to run and run ahead and get ahead of the school, and we would just chase it with the boat until the sharks were left behind, and then we would be able to land it. So it was one hell of a fun time.
That's amazing. And some of the stuff that you have done is just blowing away, which is going to lead us into the next one. So you're a big advocate on women in fishing, and you've been I suppose on many different forums talking about it, but not only you talk about it, you do it yourself. You've been there, you've done that, you've seen what struggles that some women have to try and get into. And we've got a question here, which is really good. If I can go back and find it. Judy's written, hi, Jo and Corey, what advice would you give a female wanting to dip her toe into the waters of fishing competitions?
Oh, that's a great question, Judy. Firstly, do it. Getting into comps, I think, is one of the best ways that you can learn it. You learn so much, and you'll probably feel a hell of a lot of anxiety like I do when I go into tournaments, and certainly starting out, that feeling like no one's going to take you seriously, that's pretty big. You're going to get laughed at, that's pretty big. No one wants a beginner or whatever around. All of that stuff, once you do it, you'll realise that's in our heads. The guys and girls on the tournament circuits are amazing. The camaraderie is second to none, and they really take you under their wing. The trick is be humble, be prepared to say, look, I'm learning and I'm really keen and all of that. They're not going to tell you their secrets or anything, but they're going to support you and give you tips and encourage you. The thing that I found is that they really, really want more people fishing tournaments. They want the circuits and that sector to thrive, and it can only do so with participation. So definitely do it. I also learned and still do learn more about fishing when I'm fishing a tournament than I do when I'm just going out for fun. The stakes are different. Your mindset is completely different. Your observation levels are up. And it just seems to stay with you a lot better. And you have to trust your gut, and you have to make some calls yourself. And you just do become a better angler from going out there and throwing your hat in the ring. So I'd say give it a go, be humble, don't try and be anything you're not, just be an open book and you'll learn a lot. They'll teach you a lot.
Excellent. So, Jo, you've, for many years, I suppose, I've done as much research as I can going back to we're of that ilk where half of our life is digital and half of our life is analog. Yep. So sort of before 2010, I couldn't find a lot of information on you, but I was able to find some old, and for women in general, it was harder for me to track you down because of maiden names and, your names changed over the years, but you're I'll just bring this one up onto the screen here. So I'll hide myself, but this one here is, I found this from, I think it was 2009. You won 7 or 8 business awards in the Northern Territory, and they were all to do with marketing. Is that correct?
Yeah, advertising and marketing. That's correct.
So that's where your background come from. So you went into marketing and advertising,
yep.
And then all of a sudden you had a freak encounter and decided that you were going to make a living out of fishing.
Yes.
And then within 12 months, 2 years of telling your family you're going to make your money out of fishing, and would have been, I dare say, ridiculed a little bit in that decision, to meeting the wonderful Steve Starling, which is no more person in the world that's more keen on fishing than Steve.
Me.
Well, there you go, both of you guys. So you've taken the profile that you've built up to mentor women in fishing.
Mm.
How passionate are you about that?
That's my greatest joy. Before I met Steve, I was introduced. I'm from Darwin, so there was fishing in my life. I have 2 brothers, one on either side of me, as in I'm the middle child. That explains a bit. But so they'd been fishing all the time. I was a bit of a softie. Once upon a time, I rescued a Saratoga's heart because I couldn't believe it got killed just for being a Saratoga. But that was back in the 70s, before people understood anything. But the girls, my sister-in-law Tina and her sister-in-law Tanya, hit me up to join and form a fishing team, an all-girls fishing team up in the Territory called Sister Act. And they're still, I think they've just sort of hung up the rods in the last couple of years, but they were a real force up there for over a decade. And so, yeah, we started fishing. They got me into it. My first comment was, oh, well, I'm not a really good fisher person. You know, I don't really know what I'm doing. You'll be right. You'll be right. Your brothers are great. And so, you know, you're bound to be good. So they taught me everything. Now, I will say that they weren't the first to try. By this stage, I was married to my second husband, the father of my daughter, and my first husband. So I have got a bit of a collection, but third time lucky for me, girls. Starlo's the one I should have been with right from word go, but I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't go without my daughter. But they both tried to get me fishing and all of those sorts of things. The thing was that it wasn't enjoyable because they were basically avids themselves, avid fisher people. They didn't have the patience to teach me. They had the desire for me to fish with them, but they just sort of expected me somehow to know how to fish at the same level they did, and that was the big mistake. So when the girls started teaching me to fish, they understood this, and they actually taught me what I needed to know. And that's when I realised that this is part of the problem of couples of my era, where the girls weren't raised to fish. They were raised to, I don't know, do all the fun things like ironing and washing dishes and sewing and stuff like that. And the boys were raised to fish and mow lawns, etc. But the boyfriends or the husbands had the great intention. They want to share this passion with the love of their life, but they don't necessarily always have the patience to teach. So I decided that I wanted to, I guess, steal the women away, break them out of that situation where if it was like me, then fishing was causing marital issues, teach them how to fish, teach them the basics and empower them to then be able to go back and stand next to their partner and not have that partner have to guide them. So the partner could fish, not just re-rig lines, get snags off, untangle birds' nests, tie all the knots, you know, all of those sorts of things. They could actually go and fish, and the woman could fish, and they'd be living happily ever after. So that's where it all started. And that was always my dream once I fell in love with fishing, to do that. And now I'm doing it. And it's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. I absolutely love it. The empowerment, the life that I see change in the women. There hasn't been a single girl who I've taken from novice to to self-sufficient whose whole life hasn't changed as a result. So.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to give away our first prize tonight. And as I said, Rick Doyle from Jones Doyle Plumbing has donated a massive amount of prizes to this show. And this week he's turned up with some Dizzy Scent. So the first prize, if I can get this to that camera, we've got some different scented Dizzy Scents. We've got some Dizzy Scent stickers, some boat decals as well, and a beautiful Dizzy Scent fishing shirt. And because you let us into the Women in Fishing question, Judy, I will get you to contact me on my Facebook page. Judy Cantle, you are the winner of the Dizzy Scent prize for tonight. Now, I have some other prizes still to give away, some McGrath prizes, some Dizzy Scent, and a local Wodonga prize as well. Now, while we're doing that, I'm just looking. Peter Wright said, will you teach my wife? I'm no good, apparently. And Jill Wales. Now, Jill has done a lot in the way of tournament fishing of late and actually stepped up as a boater in the last couple of years herself. Has written, where do you get prescription Mako glasses from?
Okay, so Jill, what we need to do is get in touch with a Mako dealer, and not all optometrists carry them, and let them know that that's what you want, because they have to do the get your eyes tested, and then they have to measure you on the frames that you choose. But get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with the right people if you're interested.
Excellent. Thanks, Jill. So get onto your local Mako dealer and do that. Now, I just want to pop up a couple of photos here because I love seeing, as I said, back in the day, that's an old article I found out of the Darwin Herald. I can't remember what it was called. Yep. So that's one of the articles that I found of you writing. But I want to get more into a couple of these fishing photos. Tell us about this one.
That was great. That was last year, I think, and it was up near Rockhampton, and we were filming for the Off-Road Adventure Show. So we'd been out. It was rather a slow day, and we were. Steve was fishing micro jigs, I think, and I was standing at the back of the boat reading the sounder, and I saw this rather large fish go under. So I had to look around, and I had to look at where because we were driving at the time, and sort of read the track of the boat, and then flicked my squidgy back to where I thought it would have been, and hopped it a couple times, and then she loaded up. And for those who have ever caught a tusky, the small ones go hard. That one gave me some curry. The really fun thing about that is that there was camera crew. We were filming for the Off-Road Adventure Show, and there was a camera crew on board at the time, so that was all caught on film.
That's excellent. That's just when you sent through. When I shouldn't talk away from the microphone. I do get a lot of people to send photos through, and we never get to put them up. So I'm just going to pop. I won't get a description for everyone. I'm just going to pop up some photos here of some cracking fish that you sent me. So we've got a nice little flathead there, and what's the other one you've got there? I can't see the screen. Oh yeah, there you go. That's a kingy. I was looking at the total wrong screen because I was going to bring this one up.
Oh yes. Oh,
muzzer.
Yep.
So you got how big did that Murray cod go?
116.
That's dynamite, isn't it? And you caught that one whereabouts?
That was coated on the surface.
Yeah, excellent.
And you can see that the lure is still in its mouth there, and it's a wooden lure made by JJ Eduardos, and he calls that a mouseful, and it's 2 pieces of carved wood and a cord tail, and he's carved it so that it just goes. You just work it so the cadence is just duk 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 like that across the surface. oh my goodness, when that thing opened up the top of Copeton, it made my heart come out my mouth. And then it dove down, and as it was coming up, it came straight up beside the boat, and I'm looking down, and I thought I was going to fall down its gob. It was huge.
The big mouth, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you got a nice little trout there. So I thought I'd just pop up those photos while I had the chance to do that. We got looking for some more questions. I might give away another prize. We've got let's see if I can give away a local prize. Who did we have earlier on? Somebody said Andrew Hart. So Andrew Hart from Albury, I'm going to give you the Lee Martin Marine voucher worth $50. So you'll be able to pop into Lee Martin Marine and get yourself something for your boat, or maybe put it towards a service or something like that. So that one there, a nice little voucher for Lee Martin Marine, thanks to Jones Doyle Plumbing. So that one, I'll just write this on here. If you can get a hold of me, Andrew, on my Facebook page, Corey Stands Fishing, and just let us know, I can actually drop this up to Lee Martin Marine for you, and you can pick it up from there rather than trying to post it out. Now, let's go on to any more questions come through yet. Jill saying thanks.
You're welcome.
So excellent. All right, so I've got it. What else were we going to cover tonight, Joe?
I don't know, mate. You had me all frightened.
Have you all frightened? No, not at all. I did have some stuff lined up. I fell through at the last minute. We had a few computer issues today. I did have some funnies to get you with, but I do have to hear the story about you have a problem with your pants, I believe.
Not so much down here because it's cooler weather, but you're asking me about the bad luck I tend to have with my pants and camera crews, right?
Yeah, that's correct. You seem to have been caught with not your pants down, but maybe the arse end out of your pants on a couple of TV shoots where they've actually had to film you from one side.
It's so true, and it's really hard for camera crews to stay in front of you on a boat all the time because you're actually facing overboard. So the problem started in Darwin when Steve and I were first together, and I'm going to go a little bit in what would normally be the ladies' cone of silence, I suppose, secret women's business kind of stuff. But I know you guys suffer jock rot and all of that, right? When conditions are a little bit humid and manky, yeah. Well, girls don't get away scot-free either, okay? And anyway, I found that it was best for my feminine health to basically go commando when I lived in Darwin all the time, and especially out fishing. And anyway, the sun was very harsh, and the weather was very humid and muggy and horrible. And so commando fishing is how it went. But the sun's also harsh on your cotton pants, which you tend to wear up there as well. And I learnt the hard way. And it didn't happen to me just once. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times with camera crews on board. I'd get onto the boat and lose the arse out of my pants. They just split up the seam, right? But the problem is it would always happen at the beginning or partway through the shoot. And there's no going back because you've travelled 6 hours to get to the destination. So I challenge everybody, when you're watching old episodes of the fishing DVD, if you've got an episode of Jo in Darwin, see if you can work out which ones I'm worried about where the camera crew is all the times, because there's a number of them where they've had to edit out a few choice bits of footage. I'll tell you that.
Now there is a bit scary that this has not happened once, but it's happened a couple of times.
A few times. And in actual fact, Corey, the year that we won the Freshwater Masters, I can remember distinctly in Mulwala the same thing happening to me, but I was very, very grateful that it was cooler climates and no humidity, and so I actually had underpants on. But I distinctly remember a certain Merv Hughes congratulating me on my leopard skin jocks as I crossed the road.
He is very much a card, and the Freshwater Masters is nothing without Merv Hughes and something funny to say in the background.
Oh, God, yeah, so I'm a shocker for that.
Listen, we've got another question come in. Ricky has asked a question here, which is quite appropriate. Who has been your biggest influence in the fishing industry and why?
Wow. I'd be lying if I didn't say it was Steve. You know, I live with one of the greatest fishing minds that the country's ever seen. His brain is, it's like an angling and piscatorial library. He just remembers everything. He's a qualified teacher by trade, English and history, and the stuff that he's remembered, most people have never even learnt, you know. So he's been an enormous influence on me. He took me out of being a 4X esky-filled barramundi troller up the river to being a finesse fishing gun and fly fisher. And I wouldn't know anything outside of the Daly River and Corroboree Billabong if it wasn't for Starlo. So I'd have to say he's been the most influential. And beyond that, I'd have to say that the most inspirational female angler that I know is Vicky Lear from the Daiwa camp. She is like me in that she'll give absolutely any fishing a go. She's not a snob. She'll fish anywhere, any way for anything. So we're kindred spirits, and that's why we sort of do a lot of mentoring work together and teaching together. But she's been fishing a hell of a lot longer than me. She started fishing as a teenager, and I take my hat off to her. She's the only female I know who's caught a marlin off the rocks. So, but as a female inspiration, it'd be Vicky. But yeah, most influential person in the industry is Steve, hands down, absolutely no doubt.
I still love going back and watching. Like, I got the subscription to nearly everything these days, and you go back and you watch the old episodes of Rex Hunt fishing and Starlo and Bushy out there, and you know, meeting him seven odd years ago now and getting to know him as a person. I just can't sort of let him go. I'm like that little clingy guy at the tops where I have to sit and just listen to him, yourself as well, but you just sit down and listen, because there is so much knowledge to learn off people in the industry like that. Oh
yeah, it's amazing. And Steve doesn't mind talking, but he's not going to talk for the hell of it, you know. And yeah, he'll always answer a question that he's asked. But he's also a very private person, so unless you ask the question, the answer won't be just given to you.
No, that's right.
But I will have to confess, Territorians are a very insular bunch of people, and we don't do tall poppies, we don't do hero worship or anything like that. And when I first met Steve, I had absolutely no idea who he was. How shocking!
just meant to be.
It was.
Tracy's got a good question here. She said, "Does Steve get annoyed when you backboat him? My husband does when I beat him."
Steve loves it. He's getting a little bit sick and tired of people ripping him about it, but he always puts me up on a pedestal, and he's always very proud of me. But yeah. I will say he does hog the tiller on the boat, so I always put it down to, if I'm beating Steve, it's because he insists on being the skipper, and so he's got a lot more to deal with than me. So if he wants to start evening the score, he's got to start sharing our boat.
No, and what a good boat it is too. Good setup. So Mark Atkins has written, "I love watching you and Steve fishing." So there you go.
Thank you.
So I think we've covered all the questions. Not many more coming through. I want to tip on just quickly for a bit of a lesson here before we give away the last couple of prizes. Got a couple of pearlers with McGrath and Dizzy Scent. So before we do that, I've got something new to try. Let's see, when you go live, everything tends to go wrong. So we'll see how we go with this. I'm actually going to bring this up. Now, I know that it's probably not the clearest at the other end, but this is your fishertopia.com.au. Yep. So this is a website that you've set up for fishermen and for everyone that's asked the questions, whether you're a tournament angler or the basics. You go in depth on this website, what do we want to call a platform, and you have a lot of free information, but you also have a subscription where you can get in and chat with other anglers and do all that sort of stuff. Now, just for example, here on the front page here, you've got a daily almanac. So people can go in there. All they've got to do is type in all the W's, fishertopia.com or .com.au, and this page will come up.
That's correct.
And it shows them the Fishertopia. You also have, once you've subscribed, you've got your inner circle and extra information there. Is that correct?
Correct. And if you were to go to inner circle, which is inner-circle.fishertopia.com.au, you have to log in at that point, but there are 6 examples of the kind of content that lives in behind that paywall that all of our inner circle members get to enjoy.
It is so valuable.
Yeah, you've been in there quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah.
And how good's the wall, the clubhouse wall?
Yeah, love it. And actually, I've had a bit of a hiccup in the last couple of months where I've changed credit card suppliers. So my subscription is out. I tried to log in today to get it all up on the thing, and I haven't actually updated my subscription. So I will be doing that in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, for anyone that wants to get on there, there is a wealth of knowledge on that page, and you've got so much in there. But even if it's just your daily routine reminders, the almanac's on the front page. Is that correct? I don't know if we've lost Jo there.
Type of me.
Looks like we might. I've had a little bit of a hiccup with the stream from Jo's end. So what I will do here is give away a prize while we wait for...
Hello.
There we go. You're cutting in now, Jo, if you can hear me. I'm just going to give away a prize while we're going through this. So this is a full set of 5 McGrath lures. We've got a cod spinnerbait from McGrath and a set of Dizzy Scent there. There we go. You might be back, Jo.
I am.
Yeah, we had a bit of a glitch there, but that's all right. We're just going to give away a prize while I waited for that to all hit back on. Now, is there a question that you can remember stood out for you tonight?
Oh, okay. Let me go back to that.
We'll let you pick one instead of me. So we've got, as I said, Rick Doyle supplied these, so we've got a full set. These are awesome. They're just little single. Now I'll see if I can see how good I am at being I'll bring this up. I've got 2 of me. So little set of Dizzy Scents. So each one of those has a different flavoured scent in it, and they just pop open. So they're nice and they smell awesome.
Do they really?
No, they do. There's an aniseed one. There's a squid one. As I said, the cod spinnerbait from McGrath Lures. So beautiful colours for the Murray River here. And a full pack of hard bodies from McGrath. So they're awesome Yellow Valley or cod lures. So have you found one there that tickles your fancy there, Jo?
I think I'm going to go with Ricky. If a fish follows your fly but does not take it, would you change the flying cast again?
Okay, is that Ricky Goward?
Yep.
Yep. So, Ricky, you win the prize back there. Just send us through your details. I'm not sure if you won one last week, so that's really good. They're getting the good questions coming through anyway. With 2 heads on here, you don't need 2 heads. Don't even like that one. I'll just shrink it down. So, as I said, I'm working through this. We've got Andrew Hart has won the local prize. Judy Cancel, that one. And we've got to give away a winner for putting their location in. Oh, and Andrew's, yeah, that's the one. Andrew won the local one. So that's excellent. So I still have one more prize to give away. And I think I will pick this one. And I'm going to give it to Peter Wright. So, Peter, you're going to get a surface walker and a set of dizzy scents for your troubles and asking questions tonight. So if you can contact me through Corey's Damn Fishing Facebook page, that would be very much appreciated. So I'm going to get rid of that. Joe, I think we've been on for long enough. I don't know if everyone wants to go to bed. The questions have slowed down now. So, listen, thank you very much for your time. Good luck with everything that's coming up. Next week on the show is going to be a very interesting one. We have Glenn Casey from Bassman Spinnerbaits. So we're going to talk about all things spinnerbaits, and we're going to talk cod in the river with Rod Codmack. So we're going to get him on and Glenn on together to tell a few stories. Those two together are quite funny in themselves. I might just bring them up on the screen and let them talk. They'll do very well. So if you're interested in river fishing for cod, we're going to have the cod guru on himself and Glenn Casey from Bassman Spinnerbait talking all things Bassman. So that'll be cool. Joe, we just making sure. No, excellent. Thanks, guys. So, Joe, thank you very much for giving me your time tonight. Thanks for everything. I know you're stuck in doing what we're all doing and going a bit crazy. I will apologise humbly now for some of the shit videos I have been putting out. It's just a little bit of fun for me to get it off my back. It's I'm quite happy to take the mickey out of myself, and I'm going to take the mickey out of everyone on the show. So thanks, Joe. We will enjoy another week of isolation, and I'll be back Monday night next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.